Can you grow too much fruit? Theoretically, I suppose that's possible, but practically, it's not likely. Certainly, if you don't want to run into this problem, is it a problem though? You don't have to. And today, I'm going to explain to you how to grow plenty of fruit, but not too much. Hi, Kim here at Olive City Oasis in Northern California, Zone 9B, where it gets super hot in the summer, but stays relatively mild in the winter. Today, I was planning on doing another video entirely, and I probably still will, about it's time to order your bare root fruit trees and where to buy them and how to choose them. But first, I thought I'd make this quick response video. I received a comment today and then a second response comment to my answer on one of my videos on my fruit orchard. And the person who wrote in, and thank you so much if you're watching this video for writing in, because I love to answer questions and just hear feedback from my viewers. Now, their comment was that they have 20 trees, apples and peaches, that are about 8 to 10 years old, I believe they said, and that they have become overwhelmed with all the fruit that is being produced. And they went on to say, you know, there was no outlet for them to sell it. Their area doesn't let them have a roadside stand. They've had to just let a lot of the fruit rot on the ground. So I answered and suggested some things they might do with their excess of fruit, like giving it away, maybe a U-pick if their home insurance would cover that, which they said it would not, sadly. But if you've got enough acreage that you can grow 20 fruit trees or more, you probably should be able to find at least a farmer's market where you could sell, or maybe, as several people I know do, donate some of your extra produce to a community food bank. But in any case, the question is, how do we avoid growing so much we become overwhelmed? Because I'm not overwhelmed at all. And here I am, not exactly a young chicken here anymore. I'm getting up there in years. I have a lot of health problems, including arthritis and degenerative disc disease. And these things act up at different times to make me have difficulty getting around. And also, this past summer, I even broke my hip. Fortunately, it wasn't too severe and it healed up pretty quickly. Still, how is it that I can have, well, let's see, how many fruit and nut trees do I have? Not counting all my olive trees. I've got about 20 trees that are 7 or 8 years old. Those are the oldest in my fruit orchard. And then I have another, 20 to 40 that are differing ages up to 6 years old. Now, some of those are very small, and I'm not counting things like fruit bushes and fruiting vines. So I have a lot. How is it that I'm not overwhelmed? I'll tell you, it's very simple, and you can do this too. You can have plenty of fruit, all different kinds, and not get overwhelmed. First of all, you need to choose what fruit trees you buy very carefully. Now, we are talking about what is known as backyard orchard culture. Even if you've got several acres, if you're not planning to grow a commercial orchard, then you're basically doing backyard orchard culture, which means you are not planning a monoculture. You're not going to have 20, 30, 40 apple trees. That would be crazy. There's all kinds of problems that come with a monoculture, especially related to, one, diseases and pests, which you then have to spend a lot of time fighting or trying to prevent while still remaining organic, which can be difficult. And two, if you're only growing one kind of fruit, it stands to reason most of it's going to be harvested about the same time, which, if you're growing a lot of it, leads to, yes, overwhelm. So backyard orchard culture means you're diversifying. You're growing all kinds of fruits and nuts. So if you love apples, you can grow a lot of them. I think I have 7 or 8 now, but they're all different kinds. So, although I've made sure that there's plenty of cross-pollination going on, the harvest on all these apples is not all at the same time. It is staggered. And that is my first big point. You need to choose your fruit trees so that the harvest times are staggered throughout the year. I have apple trees that are ready to harvest at the beginning of summer, some in the middle of summer, some at the end of summer, and my Arkansas Black are not ready until November. So this means that at any one point in time, I am not under this deluge of apples. I have them throughout the whole harvesting season, which is pretty long around here. Now, if you have a shorter harvesting season, you might not should grow quite as many apples, but you can certainly have 2 or 3 or 4 varieties that you can harvest in a somewhat sequential order rather than all at once. Now you just go on and extend this diversity through all the fruits and nuts you want to grow. And it works perfectly. Although I have probably a total of 60 fruit and nut trees, I don't have too much of any one kind. I believe apples are the thing I have the most of, maybe followed by figs. But everything else, I've got between 2 and 4. And that works great because, again, not any one fruit is ripening all of its fruit at the same time. Growing a wide variety of fruits and nuts means that I have things like, say, pluots that I harvest in May, and yet I have things like medlars that I harvest in December, not to mention citrus and arbutus strawberry fruit that I harvest in January, February, March. Paying attention to when those trees you're buying actually are going to be ready to harvest is very key if you want to avoid being overwhelmed with too much fruit at one time. Another aspect of choosing carefully when you get your fruit and nut trees is to think very truthfully, very realistically about what you and your family like to eat. Do not grow anything that you actually don't really like to eat. That seems like it's really obvious, but I've noticed people do this a lot in their vegetable gardens. They'll see other gardeners, whether on YouTube or in their neighborhood, whatever, growing, say, okra, so they'll grow it. I mean, it's got a pretty flower. It grows pretty easily if you live in a hot climate like mine, but if you don't eat the okra, you're just making more work for yourself. Plus, you're creating guilt. And guilt is something you don't want to have. But if you grow, say, nectarines. No, everybody loves nectarines. Let's see. If you grow, say, figs. Now, I happen to love figs, but some people don't care for their texture. Let's say you go ahead and get some. I mean, your friend grows them and she raves about them. Now, you've tasted hers and you're not a big fan, but you think, well, maybe if I grow them myself, I'll come to like them. No, don't do that. Because you're going to suddenly be producing figs and you're going to try to eat them and you're not going to like them probably because you didn't before. And then you're going to have all these figs on the tree dropping to the ground, being eaten by the birds, and you're going to feel guilty. Or not. You could always just give them away to somebody else who does love them. But you get my point. So yes, be honest with yourself about what you really like to eat, what's going to be worthwhile to you to grow. Okay, so step number 1 was to choose your trees carefully. Definitely before you buy any trees, make sure you check the harvest times and they're staggered throughout the season. Make sure you're growing a variety of fruits and nuts and make sure you like what you're choosing to grow. Step number 2, which is really the only other step, is to prune to keep those trees short. That's right. Backyard orchard culture means you're not about trying to produce this enormous amount of fruit that the commercial orchards are. I mean, they're all about making money, and they have huge machinery to harvest the fruits from their huge fruit trees in their huge orchards. That's not what we're doing. It's not what I'm trying to do anyway. I want to just grow a lot of fruits and nuts, but a lot is relative, and I mean that in relation to me, to my family, and once my older children have all moved on permanently, me alone. Now, I plan to put up a lot of these fruits and nuts, preserve them in many different ways, eat them throughout the year, give them as gifts, donate some to the community. But still, I am growing for me. I'm not growing to sell commercially, and therefore I must prune. I keep my trees pruned to just 6 or 7 feet high. That way, I can just reach up and grab that fruit easily. I don't need a ladder, let alone any fancy machinery. It's actually a very relaxing and enjoyable process to harvest my fruit and nuts when the time comes. It doesn't usually take more than 20, 30, 40 minutes at most to harvest a tree. It's pretty easy to just twist those ripe fruit right off the tree, put them in my tubs and baskets, place those in the wagon, and cart it right up to the house. Not a big deal. I do it all on my own. And because I'm growing such a wide variety of different fruits and nuts, I never really am harvesting more than a couple of trees a week at most. There are many weeks I'm not harvesting any. I must admit I also eat some of my fruit as I am out there just strolling through the orchard of an evening. I mean, that's just super nice to be able to do, isn't it? In addition to making your harvesting very, very easy and convenient to do, pruning also makes your fruit that much better. And I would combine the term thinning with pruning, even though they're two really different things. Still, you're pruning the branches and keeping the tree at a certain height, and you're pruning branches out of the middle of the tree to keep it open to the sunlight and to air circulation, which helps prevent, diseases. And thinning the fruits themselves means that you're going to get less fruit, less work when harvest time comes, but that fruit is actually going to be bigger and better because it's not competing with so many other fruits. So yes, I guess we will call step 2 pruning and thinning, okay? So I have learned that pruning is actually not difficult at all. And at some point, I might do a video on that and give you some pruning tips, but there are plenty of good pruning videos out there, I will say. Thinning, on the other hand, well, that's something that's difficult for a lot of people, me included, because it just feels so wrong to take that potential for life off the tree. But it only takes a year or two of having very small fruit to realize the benefit of thinning. And I got to that point a few years ago, and as each year goes by, that is just driven home even more. And so I become a little more ruthless with each year when it comes to thinning. So in summary, if you don't want to be overwhelmed with too much fruit, and yet you still want to grow a wide variety of fruit, have all kinds of fruits and nuts to enjoy throughout the year, you can do it. You just need to choose what you grow very carefully. Don't grow 20 or 30 or more of just one or two kinds of fruit. That will lead you, yes, into overwhelm. Grow a wide variety and make sure the harvest times are staggered and only grow what you like. And then, yes, step 2, prune and thin. Do it regularly and you will be so much better off. Your fruit will be better and you'll have less of it, so it won't be overwhelming and it won't be rotting on the ground. That is the one last point I'll leave you with. If you do find yourself with an excess of any particular kind of fruit, or maybe one year the birds or the squirrels manage to get to your fruit before you do, and you find a lot of it on the ground sort of half-eaten, mauled over, what can you do with it so that you don't feel guilty? There are a few things you can do. One, you can add it to your compost piles. And if you do that, you want to layer it because it would be considered a green addition to your compost. So you would need to add in, say, brown leaves or cardboard, anything that would be considered a brown addition to your compost, and then layer them. That will also produce a lot of air. That will really make your compost work well. I mean, the truth is, if you just put them all in there, it's still going to compost, but it's going to take a lot longer. And that's sort of similar to option 2, which is to trench. You can dig a trench about, say, 30 inches deep, and you can put a pile of apples or whatever it is you have in excess that has been sort of damaged for whatever reason, and bury it in the ground in a trench. That will take 2 or 3 years to turn into the most fertile ground ever, at which point you can plant veggies, other fruit trees, whatever you'd like. Now, the third thing you can do with that type of excess, somewhat damaged fruit is give it to your animals. Now, make sure that that kind of fruit is okay to give to your animals, but most of it will be acceptable to things like chickens. There are a few exceptions, but by and large, my chickens love any extra fruit I give them. And if you find yourself with an abundant amount of good fruit, and you just don't have enough friends and family to give it to, do check into either A, selling it at a farmer's market, or B, donating it to a community food bank or to maybe a local church, something like that, where they can give that food to people that would really enjoy it and perhaps really need it. Now I'm off to go look over my pending order for more fruit and nut trees one last time before I place it. I'm looking forward to some interesting additions to the orchard this year. Not too many, I just buy a few each year now, but it's still exciting. So that's what I'm off to do next, and that's what I'm going to be making my next video on. So I hopefully will see you there. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel and you want to grow your own fruit, as well as nuts and perennial veggies and herbs, all that type of thing, be sure to subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on any of the content I put out. Thanks for joining me today, and have a great week.